Hi there, and thank you for joining UnSCRIPted. I'm Angela Kashuba, Dean of the UNC Eshelman School of Pharmacy. We have an amazing community at this school with a shared goal of solving the world's most pressing healthcare challenges. And I'm excited for you to hear stories from our students, faculty, staff, alums, and partners. So today I've invited Harrison Sachs, a first-year pharmacy student, to my office for a conversation. Welcome, Harrison.
Yeah,
Thanks
for
joining
having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So you grew up in Idaho.
Yes.
So can you tell me about that experience and how that has affected your work ethic?
I love that Idaho in itself is an experience, right? So it is pretty rural. I grew up in a really small town until recently. We only had 2 stoplights.
Oh,
so
wow.
we got 3 now, so that's a big deal.
Awesome. Yeah.
So with that, everyone knows that Idaho, right? When you think of like the biggest, I guess, product that comes from Idaho, everyone thinks potatoes.
Right.
I would also like to argue that Idaho is really good at growing hard workers.
Oh, I love that.
And so I didn't have anything directly to do with potatoes, but there are other things, believe it or not, that are grown in Idaho. And to grow all of that, you need a source of water. It's a very dry area. And so when I was 14, I got a job moving pipe or like relocating irrigation lines.
Okay.
And basically what you do is you have these 1/4-mile lines of like just aluminum pipe that you need to pick up, drain the water out of, and move like 10 yards down the field. And you like walk back, you pick up another one, you take it. And I think the hardest part about that, it was very physical, but it's also the fact that you're doing it at like 5 a.m., right, before you go to school. And I just knew that that was not something that interested me. And I knew to get out of that, I had to work even harder in other areas so that I wasn't stuck in that kind of cycle.
That you could,
right.
Okay, all right. Oh, interesting. So building off of that, you had kind of an interesting path to pharmacy school. So after high school, can you talk about what you have done and what your experiences were coming up to being in pharmacy school here?
Okay, yeah, that's you're right, it's quite a story. So right after I graduated high school, I went to Africa for a month. So Central Africa, Uganda, and I just spent a month volunteering. And something they say with like volunteering abroad is that the person that benefits the most is you. And that was really true because that was a very eye-opening experience. I've never seen that level of poverty or need.
Yes.
But I've also never seen that kind of joy. And it kind of flipped the script for me in a certain way.
Okay.
So then after I got back, I wasn't ready to start school. Also in that culture, where I'm from in Idaho as well as Utah, it's very common to serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints if you're a part of that, which I was at the time. So after I had decided to serve a mission, I submitted my papers. It's kind of like an application, and then they choose where you go. And in the interim, I came over from Idaho to Wilmington, North Carolina, as well as a part of like Salem or Salina, South Carolina, to work on some various construction projects from a company based in Idaho.
Okay.
So I got my hands dirty there. So then after that, I did go serve a mission in Mexico City, where I was called to serve by that church. And I was there for 2 years.
2 years. Wow.
So 2 years is definitely more than just a mission trip, right?
Yeah.
Like I lived there. Again, I experienced some very serious poverty. And so I did learn a lot in Mexico. I learned how to stop people on the streets, not knowing Spanish, and being like, hey, with my broken Spanish, this is what I have to offer. And
so you went to Mexico City not knowing Spanish,
not
knowing how to speak the language.
No, I had to learn while I was there.
Wow. Okay. And so over that time, so how long did it take you to learn to communicate?
To communicate?
Well, yeah.
Man, that was a very isolating period of my life where it was so ironic because I was in one of the most densely populated cities on the planet. I was constantly surrounded by hundreds of people, like throwing elbows just to get on the subway station, right?
Yeah.
yet I'm surrounded by so many people, and yet I've never felt so isolated because I couldn't understand them and nobody
Yeah.
else could understand me. Because a lot of the people that I showed up with in that group of 20 kids, a lot of them were natives to the area, or they were from other parts of like Central and South America.
Okay.
So it was a very isolating thing, but
Oh.
that put me in a situation where I didn't have a choice,
Yes.
you know?
Right.
And so I did overcome that barrier.
Yeah.
And again, it was a very introspective process where I had to, like, it tested what I was made out of,
Mhm.
right? And my mental fortitude
Yeah.
to whether I wanted to keep going or I guess give up, right?
Yeah. So, what was the most rewarding experience for you out of that 2 years?
As a 19 or 20-year-old kid, I was literally sitting in the homes of broken families and teaching them how to, like, mend that and heal what they had broken. I distinctly remember other scenarios where, again, these are problems that I had never had, and yet I'm sitting here as a 20-year-old kid helping people overcome very serious and strong addictions to alcohol and even cocaine.
Wow.
And over the course of that 2 years, they were able to change those things. They were able to forgive each other and become a stronger family. They were able to, leave their addictions and overcome those and live fulfilling lives and not have that as a burden on them. And so I think that because that's something that's lasted even up until this day. I mean, that happened years ago at this point, but I still am friends with those people on Facebook. I can see, like, they have a much fuller face now. Like, they're thriving, they're taking pictures with their families, and they are thriving in a way that they were not when I was there with them at that time.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
To see those changes and see lasting change and affecting change. That's very cool. So, how did you find your way to pharmacy?
So, okay, I have always really enjoyed the concept of medicine. So since I was really little, I knew that I was attracted to that field. But I also have always had this, I guess not a phobia of blood, but it is a strong dislike of like hands-on experiences with blood. And that kind of funneled me into the more like hands-off, maybe behind the counter type of like.
Yeah, so healthcare, but not kind of that hands-on. Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
And so I guess since I was a teenager, I kind of had my sights set on pharmacy. In fact, to come here, I was afraid you guys wouldn't accept me with zero experience in pharmacy. So I just walked into a pharmacy and said, hey, let me shadow you guys. And that was my first exposure. That was probably like 2 months before I applied.
Okay.
And so,
And
it worked out.
And it worked out.
Yeah,
like
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was exactly what I thought it was. And now that I'm here, I'm realizing pharmacy is so much more.
Right.
Even than what I assumed. And yeah, I just really am finding that it's going to work out for me.
Yeah. What do you like most about what you're currently doing here?
It forces me outside of my comfort zone. And so I'm not just learning in the classroom, but I'm also learning things about myself and how to organize my time more effectively, which at the end of the day is, I mean, that's why I'm here, right?
Yeah.
To learn both things about pharmacy as well as things about myself.
Right.
So
we talk to our students about 100 different job opportunities with a PharmD degree. Do you have any? You kind of started in the community pharmacy realm. Do you have any ideas about where you might want to be focusing your time?
Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought that up. So, again, I thought pharmacy was mainly community.
Yeah.
That was my big picture version of it before I came here. However, when I got here, I stumbled into a couple of different industry like seminars during Common Hour, and I really resonated with what people had to say. And so, hearing those lectures, joining IPHO, and I've even invited some of those, guest lecturers out to like coffee or lunch. And I've gotten to hear their stories. I've definitely, at this point, I'm leaning towards industry and I just enjoy learning about that aspect. And I think that's where I could have the most impact as a pharmacist as well in my community.
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
You mentioned in your bio the concept of this mental cookie jar from the book Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I really enjoy like self-improvement books. I feel like
Mhm.
if you're not trying to improve, then you're almost like doing the opposite, right? And so Can't Hurt Me, although I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite books.
Yeah.
There are bits and pieces of it that I do like, and one of those was the cookie jar.
Okay.
And so if you don't know much about David Goggins, he's like an ultra marathoner. And so one of the things when he is running or when he is doing a very difficult thing, he has this what he calls a mental cookie jar, where he reaches into that and pulls out an experience or a memory or something that he can use to overcome the pain he's feeling in that moment.
Okay.
And so I utilize that to say, if I did that, then I can do this, right? If I overcame this one thing, then I can sure as heck dominate every test here in pharmacy school, kind of a thing.
Yeah. I love that. So you take your successes and you use that as motivation to keep going. So let's talk a little bit more about work. So you got into real estate.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. It's something I really enjoy. And it's something that like I've noticed about myself. I really enjoy things that have like some aspect of like progress from start to finish in them, or things that don't even finish. And so real estate is one of those things where I can experience a lot of growth and progress in.
Okay.
So I was working a job that I still work at currently, and two of my, I guess, supervisors, you could call them, are into real estate, and I constantly heard them talking about it and going back and forth with each other on the deals they were getting into. And I started asking them questions about, their deals and like what the terms they were using, what all that meant. And everything they said just clicked with me, and it made a lot of sense. And so they ended up becoming mentors to me and kind of helping me get into my own deals and like learn about the different aspects of real estate. And I'm definitely not an expert, right? But I think that's the fun part about it, because I do learn so many things all the time.
I love that.
So,
yeah, you have an overflowing cookie jar, I think.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's terrific. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. I appreciate it. Yeah. And thank you so much for being part of UnSCRIPted. We love sharing stories of those who make the UNC Eshelman School of Pharmacy truly excellent. And I hope you will join us for the next episode of UnSCRIPted, conversations with people who are advancing medicine for life. Thanks so much.